Hello and welcome to Not Just the Newest Version of Office, How Microsoft 365 Changes the Game. My name is Nathan Austin. I'll be presenting today, and producing behind the scenes is Stephanie Kingsley, and we're both from Mytech. We're excited to bring this information to you today because here's some quick takes. And here's who we're talking to. I'm hoping the folks that are listening or watching afterwards. We have found working with lots of different organizations that if they're not familiar with 365, it comes across as just another version of Office, which is why we titled it this way. It's not just about, there's so many things that are different. It really is a game changer relative to leveraging this technology. So what we really tried to do today is this session is to help people think through if you're using 365 already, that's okay. This hopefully, maybe there's some things here that we're going to show you that you didn't even know existed. But especially if you haven't used Office 365, or if you're trying to prep your team to prepare for what's coming in 365, or if you're not sure what that is, this session is for you. And so the quick takes from today are, we're going to show you highlights of how Microsoft 365 changes the game. We're going to talk about how there's common tools that we see that you can eliminate because there's so many tools that are built into this suite of productivity tools. We are going to show you how you can improve communication and collaboration different from the common ways in which we operate today if you're still operating in a file server world. Strangely enough, we actually are increasing security. I mean, that's not strange necessarily, but sometimes the convenience factors and doing fewer clicks doesn't necessarily mean more security, but we're actually increasing the security and going to make fewer clicks to get the job done. And in the end, we're going to show you there's ways that everything we try and do with our clients that we work with and helping with using Microsoft 365 and Teams and SharePoint and all these other tools is really enabling you to have fewer clicks to get the job done. And that's a beautiful thing as well. So we're excited to share with you today how Microsoft 365 changes the game. Again, we're going to go through and show you some of the highlights that I just talked about. We're going to start, though, with some common workplace challenges that hopefully can resonate with you as far as if any of these challenges exist, or most organizations we work with have multiple of these challenges or all of these challenges. And again, you're not alone. We're all human beings here, and we all struggle with communication and collaboration. But I'm going to demonstrate some of the key capabilities that exist in 365 that are hopefully different and that are part of the game-changing aspect of what 365 brings to the table. I'm not going to go deep into all those individual components. We have other sessions that are longer that go into those things more specifically. So I am going to move quickly and just highlight and just touch on some things, but just to try and illustrate for those that might be new to 365, how Microsoft 365 truly does change the game. All right, but before we get into all that, I always like to say 1 minute about Mytech. Look, we are a small and medium business consulting organization that we work with our clients to help them implement a proven IT strategy. It's not the only strategy, and we're not saying we're perfect, but we do know it's a strategy that over the last 20 years works and delivers consistent and reliable results for our clients. Our goal, hopefully, that it removes IT challenges because we all have so much more to worry about and so many more things that we could focus on to improve our business, serve our clients better, and ultimately be more adaptable to business changes that we have to exist and we have to deal with. So together, when we work together with our clients, we believe our clients, and we show how our clients can achieve 4 times more value and productivity from their IT investments. We know that's not why you're here today, but if you want to chat about that, please raise your hand. We'd love to talk. Otherwise, stay tuned and let's dig into the content. So, common workplace problems Microsoft 365 can solve. First and foremost, consolidation of tools. How many of you want to have more passwords and more accounts to remember and more of these logins to share when you're trying to, across your team? One of the things we found is that people can eliminate the tools, and it's not necessarily a huge cost savings, although there is some cost savings there, but it's usually the convenience factor of not having to manage the different accounts, not having to pay for the different accounts, not have to share different passwords. And so we're going to show you some of those details. So fewer logins to remember, which people usually really like. And of course, you can also consolidate the security of that too with multi-factor authentication. Email noise. Nearly every time we talk about training, how many of you, if I asked you right now, and I know I wish you were in the room and I could see you, if I asked, do you feel like you get too much email, raise your hand. We find almost everyone feels that. So this is a way where we can actually reduce some of your email noise, especially if you improve the way you internally communicate leveraging Teams, and we'll show you some of those details. Difficulty finding information is a very common problem that we hear from folks, is that we've got stuff all over in our file server the search that exists in our file server is really difficult. It doesn't always render the results that you want. So we'll show you some ways that there's some improved capabilities there. But what's also tied to that is multiple copies of documents. I mean, how many of you, when you're trying to collaborate on a document, email it around or back and forth, and then now you have multiple copies of that document or multiple copies of feedback of that document in different places, and then you're trying to consolidate that, put that together, and spend all the extra time it takes to do that. So we have a session that we've done called "Stop Emailing Documents" because to specifically address that. But we'll show you a couple quick illustrations of what we mean by you're not going to get those file locks anymore, and how you can multi-user edit and collaborate on documents in a much easier and faster and better way. Finally, one of my favorite parts of To-Do, I actually had a team ask me, it didn't naturally come up in conversation when we were working with them, but they said, what's one of your favorite components of 365? Personally, for me, that's been the biggest sanity check and allowed me to keep things hopefully under wraps and in control and where I can actually sleep at night because I don't have too many things rattling around in my head, is the ability to consolidate tasks and to-dos across all the different ways in which I get asked to do things, and how you can really help your organization with some accountability and visibility to those things. So those are the common problems that we see and that we hear from our clients, that you might not even realize that 365 can actually help you solve these problems. So that's what we're going to do, though, is show you today what that can look like. So let's get into the demonstration. I'm going to click over to my demo environment here really quick. All right, first and foremost, one of the common tools that we see, multiple tools you might be able to consolidate, and I'm showing the calendar. You might be wondering, well, why are you showing the calendar, Nate? Because a lot of people might be using Zoom, GoToMeeting, GoToWebinar, Google Meetup, and maybe there's other tools out there probably. But Teams also allows you to have multiple ways to do this. On almost any screen, you'll see a Meet Now, where you can start up a video conference. And the other one is if you click this little drop down over here in this corner, when you're on the calendar screen in particular, it gives you the opportunity to schedule a meeting, so you can schedule a virtual meeting. But you also have webinar and live event opportunities. We've done sessions on those. We're actually using live event as we speak, so you're experiencing the attendee side of live event at this moment. But webinar is also an option. So if you're paying for third-party tools to do that, that's one of the things you can do. The other thing I like to show is if you're in the calendar view in Outlook, you'll also have a quick option right up here at the top that's just New Teams Meeting. So this is a quick way in which you can schedule a video conferencing call. And if you subscribe to the additional call-in feature, you can also provide a phone number by default at the bottom of a call-in for a video call or an audio call. So those are just some of the ways you can eliminate. If you're paying for any of those other tools, you don't really have to. There's something you can get rid of and you can reduce an account. One of the other things that I find that people don't really know about is if people are using SurveyMonkey, again, I don't have anything against SurveyMonkey or other survey tools or quiz tools, but there's an application called Microsoft Forms where you can actually, again, just different ones that I've worked on here as a demo. Is that, different exit interviews, right, that you can look at. There's also ones that are, rate the meeting. If you're in operations, you can have a rate the meeting form that allows you to choose what kind of meeting you want to leverage. So it's kind of interesting how you can, and you can get the responses here. Now, if you're using SurveyMonkey, you need to pay to extract the data or export the data, but right built in, there's an Excel export feature, and as well as it gives you initial responses at a glance when you start collecting responses. So that's one of the tools. Again, SurveyMonkey is not expensive, and other survey tools aren't expensive, but it's one of those things that it's already built in, and instead of trying to have to share accounts, every single user in your organization that has these licenses will have their own ability to create surveys and forms. All right, third-party task management tools, if folks are using those. Again, I'm going through this quickly. I'm not trying to do a deep dive on forms. We have sessions on that, but I'll show this a little bit later. But if you task management is one of those things that's a real challenge, and different people have different ways of navigating task management. But here's an example of where part of my team, you can have a tool called Planner. This integrates really well into Teams, so you can access it via the web browser or from Teams. But you can create tasks, you can create clarity. I just had this happen this morning with the team that I'm working with, and it's not clicking. So, there we go. Sorry. Is that I had an action item that was a part of a team, and they hadn't put in any additional notes in the action item. And I pulled it up and I said, I'm not really sure what this means because I wasn't in the meeting when it happened, but no one could remember. So I actually had this happen this morning. And so I like to say often the title doesn't give enough information to remind us of what the action entails. So add more notes to set yourself up for success. So this is a team task management tool. What I like about this is that what I've heard and worked with other organizations is that when you create shared visibility to tasks and be clear as far as who's responsible for it, when is it due, and what it entails, the team visibility or shared visibility creates individual accountability. So that is one of my favorite things about Planner. And I'm going to show you now how this is the team task management capability. But what about the individual? How am I an individual managing my tasks across the different teams that I might sit on or work with, or the different ways in which I get asked to do fulfill requests or take action? So notice I've got a task, says task for next week, and it's assigned to me. What I'm going to do is I'm going to move over to another tool that exists called To Do, and I've got that pulled up here. And by default, I've got it set to tasks that are assigned to me. And so if you notice, this task for next week is the same one that you see down here, but this just gives me a way to say, well, this is my task, but it's also inclusive in all of the other things that I might be looking at to manage my tasks and to-dos. If you're someone that likes to use tasks in email, guess what? This is your tasks in email. If you're someone that likes to use flagged emails in Outlook, here's where you can pull in your flagged emails. If you want to use smart lists and actually consolidate all that so you don't have to click between these different variables, you can turn on this all option, which then throws all of your actions, whether it be from a planner task, a flagged email, or Outlook tasks, into one spot where you can then try and manage your day. And one of the ways to manage your day is when I click on the task, I can say add to my day, and it's going to pop up here once I do that, this my day function. So I'm going to say, I want to do this one today, add it to my day. Now, guess what? Now this task is up here. So, and it gives you suggestions along the side if you want. So this is one of the most underutilized capabilities. And even if your entire organization isn't using something like Planner, To Do is one of my favorite task management capabilities because it at least pulls in your flagged emails, your tasks. You can also create custom lists for yourself. Like I have a list that's just my personal to-dos. You know, when I go to the hardware store or I need to pick up groceries or something like that, I actually have a personal list that I maintain for that as well. But this is a place where you can keep track of that. And this is where you can have some team visibility, and you might have multiple teams in which you might have action items assigned to yourself. So I always like to hit on that. Those are some consolidation of tools, so you're not having to pay for third-party tools to do that. And then other common tools that we see, third-party tools, are things like Box or Dropbox or Google Drive or some other type of document management sharing tool set. So there's actually something called OneDrive. That this is actually where you have cloud visibility into your documents. I'm also going to pull up, and I like to show this illustration. I'm going to pull up the File Explorer here because the File Explorer also shows this is also OneDrive. So this is actually many organizations, if they're nonprofits in particular, have a board of directors. But this is where I've synchronized. This is OneDrive, and I've actually synchronized documents from our SharePoint site to my local machine that I can access via my File Explorer. So this is the way that oftentimes your team, if you're used to the file server world, is used to accessing your files. And so you can actually make it really easy for them by syncing information to OneDrive. And so they are actually accessing SharePoint, but they don't even know it. You don't even have to tell them that it's SharePoint, but this is where they can access files. And I'll just, see if I can find a document here for an example. I don't have a ton of documents in this one. Here's a board meeting agenda. So this is an example where this document that lives in SharePoint, I now can access on my local machine without having to navigate to SharePoint. And OneDrive, as I mentioned, also is a web browser, so you can access it in the web browser, but you can also access it via your File Explorer. So there's just a couple different ways in which OneDrive can work, depending on how you want to use it. But if you're paying for a third-party tool like Box or Dropbox or Google Drive, guess what? You're already paying for it in 365 if you're already using it, or that's something that you can consolidate when you choose to make that migration happen. All right, so those are some of the consolidation of tools capabilities that I've found. Again, I also like to illustrate that all of those are also eliminating the complexity of additional accounts to manage, additional accounts to pay for, additional accounts to secure. You can consolidate all those to a single login, which is your main username and password, and you can also apply multi-factor authentication on all those tools, so it all works together. And multi-factor authentication, by the way, is another one of those tools that you can get rid of. So if some organizations are using third-party MFA tools, You can consolidate them and use them. Oftentimes the licensing you're paying for with Microsoft includes the ability to do multi-factor authentication, and so you don't have to pay for yet another tool to do that. And the last thing that I'll say about consolidation of tools that I hear is kind of a pain factor for folks is that if you have remote folks, which nearly all of us have over the last couple of years, you can eliminate that pesky VPN that no one likes. Now, VPNs have a purpose. I'm not saying VPNs have no purpose, but if the reason why you're using a VPN is to access files, going down this path, you can get rid of it. And so you can actually make your team happier. You can make it fewer steps to get to the information they need by going this direction, moving to Teams and SharePoint, and you can eliminate that pesky VPN that, again, no one really likes. So, all right, let's move on here. So, okay, I talked about fewer account logons. One of the other things I wanted to show you, just an illustration of that, though, is if you go to the office.com portal, so if you want to find out if you have Microsoft 365, one of the things I found is not everyone understands or knows that if you just go to office.com and log in, you will have access to all of the applications that your individual user account is licensed to use. So by illustration, here are all the different components: bookings, Delve, Excel, Forms, lists, OneDrive, OneNote, Outlook, Planner, Power BI, Power Automate, Project, Stream, SharePoint, Sway, Teams, To Do. These are all the different applications that live inside of Office 365. Some of these are, like your traditional Office tools like Outlook and Excel, for example. But if you don't realize that there's all these other applications that are potentially available that, to help you solve the different communication collaboration problems in your organization, as well as some automation problems if you really get more sophisticated in leveraging Power BI and Power Automate, some really cool capabilities there that we're not even going to touch on today, but I wanted to share that with you. Okay, so that's really, we talked about fewer account logins and consolidating, but I also wanted to use that as an illustration to show you all the other applications that are available to you that you might not even realize. Okay, now let's get to the communication side. I want to talk about email noise, because again, nearly everyone talks about email noise. One of my favorite parts about Teams, so I'm navigating the Teams, I've found with organizations that use Teams, and I have one here that I'm going to illustrate, if they've used Teams, oftentimes they've only used the chat feature. They haven't really gotten into the Teams section of Teams, which is here. And I would like to thank Microsoft for making that really easy and clear by calling the application teams as well as a subset of the application teams. But we're going to talk about chat really quick. I think if you can imagine all the individual emails that you send or receive during the day internally to individual folks, you can really consolidate that by having just email chat. So these could be all emails that I'm sharing, and I'm linking documents, not sending documents. I send a message to Stephanie checking in to see how the project is doing. Stephanie could come in here, and one of the things that can think about fewer clicks, you can just hover over this and acknowledge what's going on. I also like this option right here, this little breadcrumb. So Stephanie just liked that, you see. It just gave me a little indicator here. I got a little activity bell up here that Stephanie liked it. And then the other thing is that she could hit this little button here, and it gives the option to reply. So you can actually reply to conversations individually, not unlike you're emailing different emails back and forth to an individual person. And it's much easier to be able to, it's fewer clicks to be able to access information. So again, Stephanie just replied, it's doing great, we're on track. I can then come in here and acknowledge as well and just give a thumbs up. So that's one of the things. You can also do that with group chats. So imagine those email messages where you might have multiple people on them and you get these reply emails going back and forth, or reply all emails. Well, here's one where I've got a couple folks in it. And again, I've actually, once you have more than one person in it, so this one is just Stephanie, but I added, this is a group chat because I added multiple people to it. And I changed the name to marketing lead chat. So this is where Stephanie or Jonathan or myself can participate, and I can acknowledge Jonathan's note. Stephanie can see that and reply. And that way, instead of clicking reply all and having to type back and forth, we all can see that in a much easier view on a single screen. So that can, again, reduce, it can't eliminate all your emails, but when you think about communication internally, that's where Teams can really shine and make it fewer clicks to respond and acknowledge and communicate. I also like this little activity bell from a notification perspective, because notice it'll give me, if there's anything's changed or different, it'll give me that visibility. Hey, Stephanie reacted to this, or Stephanie made a comment to this. I get those communications. I get the little note that somebody replied to a chat here too. So it's really easy to quickly navigate to those, to these communication in a view. and then I got tagged. So again, just things that can really reduce the amount of email noise you get and be able to manage and respond. Instead of for instance, Stephanie, if this was an email to me, I could click reply or reply all, say thanks, I got the message, or I could just hover over it and with one click acknowledge, right? So it's just much easier to communicate and fewer clicks to actually make sure you're communicating with your team. The other part I'm going to touch on really briefly is in communication that if you're, well, what about team communication? So imagine that email that you have historically sent out to a distribution list that might be your marketing team or might be your operations team or might be to a board of directors or to your entire company. Well, instead of that, setting up teams to mirror your organizational design, and now you use this natural structure from a security perspective and a communication perspective, and what I'm about to show you is a collaboration perspective as well. So one of the things I'm going to do really quick is I'm going to show you, and I'm going to go fast. I'm going to go to the files, so talk about file collaboration, and how many of you have gotten that file locked error. So I'm going to illustrate how to share something. So I'm going to hit copy. I'm clicking on the breadcrumbs here. I'm going to copy link. I know I'm going quickly because we have other sessions where we illustrate these details, and come on, don't time out on me now, teams. Let's try that again. Not on the demo, please. Okay, there we go. So I've got the link. So I'm gonna go back to post. What I'm gonna do is have a new conversation. And so I'm gonna say, hey, help me with this, help me with the annual agenda, please. If I could type, please. So I'm gonna tag Stephanie at Stephanie. Please review and comment on this document, on the annual agenda document. Sorry. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to highlight the annual agenda, and I'm going to hit this little link button right here, and I'm going to paste. I'm just going to hit Control V to paste that in there. So now this is linking the annual meeting agenda document that I just saw. Thanks. And I'm going to hit send. So now what this does is I'm actually communicating with the entire team. I've created a subject line, and I didn't copy and paste the document from I didn't copy and add a document or make another document. I linked the document that Stephanie already has access to. So now when we pull up this document, and I'm pulling it up inside of Teams, but you could also open it up in Word or in the browser, we can actually start seeing different comments that are on the side. And so Stephanie made a comment here, and notice I can also see that Stephanie is in the document here. So we can multi-user edit. I'm not getting any file lock issues. I can also then reply here, like say yes, at Stephanie, let's do that, right? And then I could also then assign a task. I can just hit send. So this is where you can do, instead of editing the document live, which you can do, if you're collaborating on a document using comments and then assigning one person to be the author or the editor, so that you're not overriding what someone has done or accidentally deleting something that someone did really want intentionally. But this is an example of how you can have multi-user editing. I can see that Stephanie's here. I can see that her cursor is moving around as she's dealing with stuff here. I can reply to comments. This is one of my favorite capabilities of Teams and SharePoint, because in the past what you used to do is email these documents back and forth or redline copies, and now you're wondering which version is the right version. So this is one of my favorite ways, and I'm just going to go ahead and hit close to illustrate that. So now I've talked about eliminating some noise and how you can do make fewer clicks to communicate and reduce the amount of email noise you get between chat, group chat, and posts. But the other thing I want to show you is, what about finding information? One of my favorite tips to illustrate is that the Teams and the file server searching capability isn't that great, and so most people don't use it, because unless you have a folder name or a document that has the word that you're searching in the title of the document, it doesn't always find it. But what if you're trying to search something in Teams? So I'm going to type annual meeting, and I'm going to hit enter. So what it does is it's going to show me. So I was hoping it would show me. Actually, I'm just hit annual, because I didn't put annual meeting in the title of the document. So if I go here, so what it did is it gave me the administrator posted. There's a message, but there's also a document. If I wanted to click on, if there were lots of documents, I could click on files, and there'd be lots of different documents here where annual shows up in the document or in the title of the document. So that's what I like about Teams, is it shows not just the title. It will show that too, but even if annual is noted in the content of the document, it will find that information as well. The other thing I like to illustrate relative to search and finding information is going up here. So I've just got general search. I'm using the Edge browser, and this is key. And I'm just going to search annual meeting, hit enter. And notice that just, of course, I'm searching Bing, but there's also this little tab here right next to it called work. And what this does is it actually is using your login, because I'm authenticated and logged in to the browser. I'm using my same login that I used to log into my computer and Teams and all that. And it actually pulls up documents. So I'm basically have a search engine for any documents that I have access to in my Microsoft 365 environment. So I can use the same tool that I use to search externally to search internally, as opposed to trying to build a new search engine. So this is what I love. And now I'm going to do a little test. I actually put a little word Honeycrisp into one of the documents. I'm going to search this and see if it finds it. It might not, and I'm going to go back to SharePoint and see if it does, because I did it, and it takes time to index the content of the documents, but I'm going to see if it's done it as in the time that I tried it. See if I find anything. It does. So that's a great example. So again, I'm in a public web browser in Bing. I'm authenticated into Bing, and notice I typed Honeycrisp, and it returns the document of board meeting agenda and minutes. Well, that's weird. So I'm going to open up this document in the browser, and you'll see that I typed, we discussed Honeycrisp apples in the notes. So it actually had indexed that I had typed in Honeycrisp. And so when I put Honeycrisp in the search engine and I was on the work tab, it actually found documents inside of our 365 environment that had that. I specifically chose a word that would not show up in other in the documents to illustrate it. But it's a great point of being able to find information that you're not able to do in the traditional file server space. So with all that said, that is nearly everything. I'm going to come back to Planner and To Do because it's, again, my favorite piece. If you're like me and a lot of the people that work with us and engage with us, they're folks that are leaders in the organization, executives of an organization, and they oftentimes sit on multiple teams within the organization, whether it be a department or a group or a cross-functional group or a board or et cetera. And using Planner is great if it's for one of your teams. But using Planner across all of the teams in which you sit and participate provides so much more value, because if you do that, you now are able to consolidate all of your action items that are assigned to you, no matter what plan they're on and no matter what team you sit on, to this one spot inside of To Do. And now you're going to be able to spend more time doing the things that you've been asked to do, as opposed to searching and finding the things that you're asked to do. And if you're searching and finding, you're probably missing, like I did. So that's one of my favorite aspects. Consolidating these, I'm going to go back to the PowerPoint presentation now. This is how Microsoft 365 has changed the game. It really eliminates the redundant tools that you're probably already using and potentially are paying for that you can get rid of. You can improve communication and collaboration. It actually increases security. You can layer in multi-factor authentication. There's fewer accounts you have to log into. And the structure of Teams itself is based on who should be a member of that team or a part of that and have access to that information. When you put that all together, and if you do this right, if you plan it well, which we like to help people do, is you can enable your team to use fewer clicks to get the job done. And that's, in my part, the most beautiful aspect of Teams and SharePoint and the 365 environment. So with that said, please join us for future events. We'd love it if you subscribe to our YouTube channel, follow us on LinkedIn. If there's anybody else that you know that could benefit from these events, by all means, please share that with them. We wanted to get the word out to help people be more productive and secure. We always publish our events at mytech.com/events. And we also host power user groups every other month. Our next one is next month. Look at our website at our events page to find that information. With that said, I want to thank everyone for attending, and let's open it up for questions for those who are sticking around.